Hi beautiful, welcome to my channel. In today's video I am finally reviewing the NATASHA DENONA ROXA palette. I have been patiently waiting for this to get delivered to me. I ordered it the moment it came out. I couldn't do expedited shipping for it or anything, and so finally yesterday evening it arrived. And so first things first, this morning is we are going to tackle this review. I am super excited to get into it. I'm super excited to swatch, and I'm going to create a couple of looks in this video with this palette, but I do want to do a 5 looks 1 palette with it as well because I love the color story. You guys know I have been wanting a purple palette forever, and so I'm super excited to finally have one and play with it. And so let's go ahead and get started. Remember, if you guys are shopping for this NATASHA DENONA palette, you can always save 15% off on the NATASHA DENONA website with code PATTY15. The code didn't work for a few hours when the palette first launched, but that was an error and they fixed it later on. You can always use code PATTY15 even on new items on the NATASHA DENONA website and save some money. So if by the end of this video you're interested in this palette, don't forget to check out using code PATTY15, and that way you can save some money. And it is an affiliated discount code, so I get a little kickback from it as well. Let's go ahead and open this one and get into all of its goodness. Here is what the exterior box of the palette looks like. This is made in Italy and it has a 24-month shelf life. Here's the back of the palette. It has the names up here, and I'm very excited about this one because we have a new matte formula. She's calling it the Silky Matte formula. Purples are traditionally harder eyeshadow colors to make because the purple pigment is hard to blend out. So from what I read on the NATASHA DENONA website, she had to create this new Silky Matte formula in order for these purples to perform beautifully. I cannot wait to try them. Here's what the exterior packaging of this palette looks like. It has a bit of a duochrome to it, but I honestly thought it would be more. So it has like a blue situation happening to it. Oh, it actually looks better like this. Okay, now it looks like I thought it would. Anyway, so blue and purple, as you can see, it looks absolutely beautiful. And then once you open it, take a look right here at the inside of the palette. It is, I would say, majority cool tones, but we do have this warm quad right over here on this side. It actually looks a bit warmer in person than it did online. Ooh, the shade Flutter looks so sparkly. Cannot wait to swatch it. Cannot wait to swatch it. Let's just go for it. Here are the first 4 colors. We have the shade Dixie right there. Jacaranda, which is a very intense purple shade. Flutter, which is that sparkle that I was admiring. Flutter is definitely a stunning sparkle. And then the shade Phoebe, which is a very light grayish lilac type of shade. And all of the mattes in the palette are that new Silky Matte formula. So far I would say they're swatching really nicely. Here are the next 4 colors. We have the color Regal, which is one of NATASHA's regular shimmers. It's not super sparkly. Then the darkest color, which is called Eclipse, and it's a beautiful burgundy type matte color that looks beautiful. Stargirl comes next, which is a bit of a duochrome shimmer, also not sparkly. And the middle shade in the palette, which is called Bolt, and it's one that you have to swirl together in order to get this shade. 2 of the warmer mattes come next, and I already know I'm not going to be a big fan of this shade because it is straight up red, and I'm not a fan of red eyeshadow. So first we have the shade Heather, then the shade that I'm not impressed with, which is called Cerise. Moving on to the bottom row, we have Sweet Pea, which is a beautiful kind of in between pink and lavender light shade. And then the shade Concord, which is a pretty shimmer that has a few sparkles in there. And then we have the last 3 shades, starting with the shade Velour, which is a light purple color. Then we have this sparkly pink right here, which is called Brink, and the last shade is the shade called Orchid, which I had complained about when I did my first impressions of the palette without having it, just based on the pictures we saw online. And Orchid was a shade that I didn't like as much just seeing the pictures, but I like it much more in person, I will say, than I did online. So take a look right here. Here is the entire ROXA palette swatched. There are shades that I love, and then there are a couple of shades that I'm a little bit more meh about, you know? Definitely dying to try this color here. It looks beautiful. I showed you the palette, I showed you the swatches, so let's go ahead and create 2 eyeshadow looks. I don't know what I want to do, but let's dig in. I think I'm going to start, I just grab a random color and built from there. That's my process. I'm going to start with the shade Phoebe on a Rephr number 15 brush, and I'm going to start by adding that color all throughout the crease of my eye. Are you zoomed in all the way? No, you weren't. Here we go. All across the crease of my eye with my Rephr number 15 brush. And so we are just going to blend that lilac shade all throughout the crease. I will say, for that color to be super light and also lilac, it blends out beautifully all throughout the crease of the eye. Let's make things a little darker, a little more interesting. With a smaller blending brush, this one is the Shadow 00, I'm going to grab the shade Velour, and I'm going to add it to the outer third of the eyelid and then blend it into the crease. I grabbed some more and I'm extending it upwards through the crease. And I'm just doing little circles in windshield wiper motions to blend it. Very light pressure on the brush is mostly what matters. That color also looks beautiful. Do we want to darken it up even more? Of course we do. And I'm going to grab the shade Haraganda right here, same brush, and intensify the outer third of my eyelid, and then once again start blending it upwards into the crease, but I'm not taking Haraganda as high as the other shades. I think for the center of my eyelid I want to go with this shade. This one is called Brink. On my finger I'm just going to tap it right through the center, blend it into the matte shades. Just tapping it in place. And then with a small flat brush, this is the number 28 from Rephr, I'm going to grab the shade Dixie and tap and blend that shade on the inner third of the eyelid and all the way in, right to the inner corner. I grabbed a little bit more Brink on the brush and I'm blending it in with the inner corner shade. Pencil brush next. This one is number 3 from Rephr, and I'm going to grab Haraganda once again and smoke out my lower lash line around halfway in. And then with a teeny tiny blending brush and the shade Phoebe, I'm going to smoke that out. So far, everything has been performing beautifully, which is honestly as expected, because I always expect NATASHA shades to have amazing performance, and I believe that these absolutely do. I think we need a pink waterline for this eye look. I used to have the perfect baby pink waterline color from Fenty, but my eyeliner expired. It no longer was creamy, and so I don't have that shade anymore, which made me realize I don't have a pink shade to put in my waterline. So I'm going to go with a lilac shade. This one is from Glacier in the shade Muse, and I am writing myself a mental note to get myself a pink eyeliner from the Sephora sale coming up. This absolutely works as well. The pink was just going to be a little bit more contrasting, but take a look before any mascara. This right here is the first look with this ROXA palette from NATASHA DENONA. So to start on this one, I'm going to use the shade Sweet Pea on a thick blending brush. This one is my Rephr number 15, and I'm going to blend that pink shade all throughout the crease of my eye as my transition color, and bringing it all the way in and blending it almost all the way to my brow. With a smaller blending brush, this one is the Shadow 00, I'm going to grab the shade Orchid and tap it on the outer third of the eyelid. Yep, I like it. Let's start blending it up into the crease. So I'm blending Orchid up a bit, It's blending really nicely into the first shade, but I think I want to intensify the outer corner a bit more. And I actually don't want it to go any higher than that, so I'm back with the big blending brush and running it through the edge so that it blends it easily without having to add any more pigment to the crease area. I will say I see the criticism of this palette having a lot of pink shades rather than it being an actual all matte palette. It's true. I think it's true. The shade Orchid is very pink. I thought I was going to like this eye look more, but maybe I was right about the shade Orchid in my initial assessment of the palette. By the way, I put Orchid on the inner third of the eyelid because we're going to do a halo eye. And it's not going to look as pink as it looks right now because we are about to use what I think is going to be my favorite matte shade in this palette, which is the color Eclipse. It's so deep and dark and just beautiful. Oh yeah, I love shades like Eclipse. They make my heart flutter. So pretty. I love shades like these. This shade makes this eyeshadow palette special. Look at how good that is. It's so dark and deep. And it's blending really nicely. I haven't blended it up yet. And even just tapping the edge, it's blending already into Orchid. I'm going to wipe off my brush on a dry paper towel just so that it doesn't continue to add pigment. And I'm going to do little circles around the edge so that it blends nicely into the shade Orchid without getting more intense. Right in the center of my eyelid, I'm dying to use this shimmer right here, so we're going to do it right in the center. This one is called Flutter. I'm just going to stamp it right through here. Stamp, stamp, stamp with my finger all throughout the center of the eyelid. And this is one of those really beautiful ethereal shimmer shades. I'm going to grab the shade Stargirl next, which is this whitish looking shade, and run it through the center of the center just to lighten things up a bit more. Back with the shade Eclipse on a pencil brush. This is the Rephr number 3. I'm going to add it to the outer corner and right underneath my tear duct area. Back with Flutter right underneath my eye here. And with the shade Sweet Pea, which was my initial transition color, I'm going to smoke out my under eye. I think I might need to get a little bit of Orchid so that it looks similar to what I did on top. So I'm going to blend Orchid kind of sandwiched in the middle. One of the shimmer shades I used, and I was not careful with it, definitely gave me a lot of fallout. And I'm adding a bit more Eclipse into the mix on the outer third of the eyelid. Okay, with my powder puff, I was very easily able to get that fallout to come off. Majority of it. There's like a few little specks left, but nothing in comparison to what I had going on there. So there's a plus. It was very easy to take off. I'm not loving the eye look, to be honest with you, but I'm just going to keep going. With my little flat brush, number 28 from Rephr and the shade Stargirl, I'm going to do the inner corner of the eye, blending that shade in through the crease ever so slightly. And I'm going to add it in the center here with the brush as well, because I feel like it looks better with the brush than it did when I just lightly added it with my finger. I'm going to use the same eyeliner, the shade Muse from Glossier. By the way, I've had these eyeliners for like 2.5 years now, and they're still super creamy. So these are definitely worth the investment. I went very intense with this one. Anyways, here is look number 2 before any mascara or lashes. I actually think I like look number 1 better today. It's a bit more ethereal, nice and light. This looks very pink, and I want it to look purple, but it looks very pink, and it's all because of the shade Orchid. Anyways, let me go ahead and put on some mascara and lashes, some blush, some lipstick, and I'll be back to give you guys my final thoughts. These are my final results right here. This is look number 1. Wish, if I had to pick one, this is my favorite. I actually really like the way this looks, and this actually does look purple. Which is fantastic, versus look number 2, which, I mean, it's still kind of purpley looking, but it's a bit more pink than I would want it to because of the shade Orchid. And so this is the way that it turned out right here. As you can see, I put on some mascara and some falsies as well. And so let me give you my final thoughts on the Natasha Denona ROXA palette. Quality-wise, 10 out of 10. Every shade blends beautifully. Even the light shades are pigmented. The shimmers are beautiful. And I think I heard someone say in a comment or something that the shades weren't sparkly enough, but I disagree. I do think that majority of the shades, as you can see, are pretty sparkly, maybe with the exception of this one, but I do find that this has a really nice amount of shimmer and sparkle in it. My favorite matte shade has to be the color Eclipse. It's so deep and dark and rich and still very blendable. I absolutely love it. As you saw, I did not play with the warmer shades right here. When I do my 5 Looks 1 palette, I will, but those weren't the shades I am interested in this palette for, so I went ahead and skipped them for today's video. Is this the purple palette of my dreams? No. However, I do like a lot of the purple shades that are in this palette, and so I do see myself continuing to use it and continuing to reach for it. I do want to make a video in which I switch out some of the shades, and maybe I can create the purple palette of my dreams based on a lot of the shades that are in here, but then switching out some other ones. I feel like that would be so fun. Performance wise, I love it. I personally think I would have preferred some of the non-purple shades to be a bit more neutral leaning, a bit more basic, rather than the red. I hate the red color in there, but other than that, I do really like the palette. If you, like me, love purple eyeshadow, I don't think you're going to regret grabbing this one, because you do have some really nice performing purples in here, I will say. But I don't think that this palette is for everyone, to be honest with you. So it really depends on your preference and whether or not you see yourself using a color story like this one. I definitely want to use it in combination with other shades as well and see what looks I can create that way. And I can't wait to do a 5 Looks 1 palette with it, I will say that. I'm definitely excited to continue playing. Remember, if you are interested in this palette, to grab it using my links down below in the description box. On the Natasha Denona website, you can use code PATTY15 and save 15% off. And that is all I have for today's video. Let me know which look was your favorite. I am favoring number 1 today. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you back in the next video. Bye.